Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
I just unmuted.
Oh, good. You can hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good.
How are you,
Excellent.
Rabbi? How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good. I'm all
just-
right.
I just called Hannah Lipton. It's her birthday today. I wished her a happy birthday.
Oh, good. Could she hear you?
Yes, she did. She heard very well today. I know sometimes she has problems with that.
Oh, I've called her a number of times and she could not hear anything I was saying. I'm going to give her a call later. Yeah, I did send her a card, but I should also call her. Yeah. So,
So I get my second shot vaccine 3 weeks from today.
excellent. You got, did you
The
get the Moderna? Oh, okay. I got the Pfizer. They both work very well, so that's good.
My arm was sore. Had a sore arm for about 3 days. It
Yeah,
was
me
very,
too.
very sore.
Me too. I don't remember my arm being so sore from other, previous vaccinations. My arm was so sore for a long time, several days. I
Yeah.
mean, not terrible, but
Right,
it's a little sensitive.
right.
Yeah. Maybe that just means that the antibodies are
Right.
maybe that's good morning. Unmute yourself.
I just did.
Oh, excellent.
How
Good
are both
morning.
of you? Hi, Betty.
Hi.
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi, Marlene.
Oh, Marlene, good to see you.
Good to
Mwah.
see you.
Rabbi, I have a question. Can I
Mhm.
interrupt for a minute?
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to the Bible. As I told you, as a child, we were only cultural Jews, okay? So everything I'm learning now, I've learned from you and the temple since
Okay.
I retired. The bottom line is I'm listening to these stories now.
Yes.
I believe that what I'm up to now, it perhaps is Daniel, if that rings a bell with
Oh,
you.
yeah, sure. Daniel.
And he was the one who can interpret the dreams for the king. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The bottom line that I'm questioning, that's just wild to me, is these dreams, these visions with the animals that have a
Yes.
combination of 4 different animals with wings and tails and coming up from. These are all fiction stories that these people make up. It's like wild to me to listen. These are not from God. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. These are from prophets. Am I understanding a little bit? Daniel was a prophet or not?
Yeah, Daniel, the book of Daniel is in, I don't think we count Daniel as a prophet. The book of Daniel is found in that part of the Bible that's called the writings. You're asking about the visions. Did they come from God?
They're wild. I mean, it just seems to me some of these things that I'm reading just astound me, that the way they're writing it is like God sent this and with the big clouds coming over and all these things.
Well, my
stories is my point.
Maimonides
Yeah.
talks about visions and dreams and prophecy. And he was saying that Moses had pure prophecy. Moses didn't see visions. God didn't appear to him in dreams. God spoke to Moses straight on, mouth to mouth to ear, whatever.
Right.
Was it in language? Was it just how did God communicate to Moses? It's a really good question because it raises the question, what language does God speak in? It says that the Torah was given in 70 languages. Did Moses hear God speaking? Or was it some deeper form of, purer form of communication where it didn't even need words? Maimonides goes on to say that for some of the prophets, God appears in a dream or a vision. Uh, you're talking about the visions mentioned in the book of Daniel, but you can also see in the book of Ezekiel, you'll see the most amazing imagery, a wheel within a wheel.
Yeah, right. I was
all
listening to
sorts of
that. I
things.
think he's before
But
Daniel.
Maimonides would say that isn't God. That is human imagination interpreting something that's coming from God. The image itself isn't really God, but that is the frailty or the limitations of the human mind. That if God enters you and speaks with you, um, you're likely to see it in a vision or a dream. Only Moses could
So
speak to God directly.
all these wild stories that I'm reading about are really wild stories, period. And it's their interpretation, human interpretations, Marlene.
That's what I was going to say. Aren't there different interpretations of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you look at you. Don't discount the visions. Don't discount the
Ideas.
allegories. Don't
Ideas.
because within those visions there could very well be some
Lessons.
lessons.
There's always a lesson.
You know, if we're reading the Torah and what we're going to be doing when we read the Torah is to be translating it, interpreting it into our own experiences, right?
Right.
We might use language that really doesn't apply to God, but it applies to us. And we're trying to bring God from up there down here so we can understand God. So we shouldn't mistake the image for the
Being
actual
literal.
message, the
It's not
communication.
literal.
It's not literal. No,
Not
definitely not. And Maimonides would warn you, saying, don't take the vision is important. Look at it, but don't take it literally.
I got it.
Only our tradition makes it very clear that anyone who takes scripture literally doesn't get it. The rabbis say this many
So
times.
then what I'm reading that sounds wild from the Bible is really, you have to just interpret it for yourself. They're sort of like metaphors or
Self-interpretation of
Yeah.
what you're reading, I think, is very important to see it so we understand it.
Exactly.
but not
Exact-
literally, not literally.
Not literally. No, when it speaks of God, the finger of God, God doesn't have a finger. When it speaks of God, God speaking, God doesn't speak in the same way you and I speak. But somehow it has to be put into human language so we can get a gist of it. And it's always tricky. Words can have many meanings, and there can be many interpretations of a text. This is where I have interesting discussions with evangelical Christians. I haven't met with them for a year because of the COVID, but for many years I've been meeting once every 6 weeks or so with a group of rabbis. There's just a few of us rabbis with evangelical ministers. And they're quite literal in their translation.
Right.
They are, and we Jews, and there have been, we rabbis, some of us are Reform trained, conservative trained. Have we ever had we had an Orthodox cantor once in our group, But throughout the Jewish denominations, I know we call them movements, but they really are like denominations. We all understand that Judaism is an interpretive tradition. We don't leave a text the way it is. We dig deeper into it. And that, for us, that makes it alive. We have to be careful. You know, when we interpret, we can be, it's everything, every interpretation, I think, is provisional. It goes, well, it makes sense now at this juncture in my life, in this juncture of history, in the context in which I find myself, or our people finds itself. But in a later generation, they might see it somewhat differently, but that's okay. I don't think we understand, we in America today, which is a pluralistic, democratic, Western, very secular kind of society, we look at Torah quite differently than our great-grandparents in the shtetls and in Eastern Europe and Belarus. Our circumstances are different. We're looking at the same Torah, but we're drawing different lessons. Why? Because our lives are somewhat different.
Right.
That's why I think we all interpret it differently. I mean,
Brian, you're
Marilyn,
right.
you and I can read the same statement and apply it to our own life and see it as a different scenario.
And that's why the rabbis all sit around, correct me again if I'm wrong, Rabbi, and interpret rabbis 15 different opinions. Does that make sense?
That's absolutely
rabbis-
right.
That's
And look,
That's
we're doing it right now. We're doing it right
It's
now.
like the sessions that the rabbis do, right? Doesn't it make sense? I got something to add. You know, when talking about the languages, the Tower of Babel, ring a bell. That was one language. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is the first time I'm learning this. And after God destroyed it, he made all these different languages. So he had ability to create different languages. But his language was his language or her language, because, you know, as
by the need of people, by the need of the people.
Not female and it's not masculine. I believe, Rabbi, for me, that the power of God is a spirit. It is like a power over the whole universe, the whole galaxies, everything that has nothing to do with a human being. It is a power, and he has the ability to give you female and male attributes.
Yes, you know,
Makes sense?
every language, well, we're speaking English now, and English has got its own idiosyncrasies.
Syncrasies.
Yes. And if we were speaking German, or if we were speaking French, they all have their own kinds of nuances. English is, we can express time in English better than any other language. We could say in the future, tomorrow by this time, I will have just finished writing my sermon. Wow. In the future, I'm telling you something in the future, which almost all languages can do, but I'm telling you, right just at this particular time, tomorrow, I will just have finished. You can't say that in a lot of languages. German is a very precise language. Spanish is a much more flowery language. You could the English, and you know, we have more words for boat in English than any other language. For a lot of languages, you know, why? Why is that? Because, hey, guess what? Britain is on an island. They've always been a sea power. So you can differentiate boats and ships and yachts and blah, blah, blah. A lot of languages just have one or two words for a boat, and that's it. They tell us that the Inuit people up in northern Canada, they have dozens of words for snow. I don't know if that's true or not, but that probably,
Their culture,
this
that's
kind
their
of
environment.
in Hebrew, we have Hebrew. It's hard to express what I just said. Tomorrow at this time, I will just have finished. It's hard to say that in Hebrew. But Hebrew is very rich in agricultural terms. Rain, because you can differentiate with one word different kinds of rains, because rain was very important to our people. There are nuances, like the word for spirit and breath are very similar. When you read Hebrew, I read something yesterday. I read a commentary on the Haggadah, and the writer was talking about something I have to look up because I don't know whether, I went, how did I not know that? The word to love, ohev,
Right.
ahava, maybe use that cream from the from the Dead Sea,
right.
the ahava product. Ahava means love. Ohev. He maintains that it also means to give. I haven't seen that root, aleph, bait, ohev, aleph, hey, bait, used in that way. And so what does that mean? To love means to give something. It's not just a feeling. Isn't that it? There's a nuance. There's a nuance in Hebrew that you don't get in English. Isn't that interesting? If I love you, I gotta give something to you. It's not just my feelings, right? Right there. Oh, that's something delicious. About bringing our own personal experiences into the study of Torah. The best example of that was, it had to be 35, close to 40 years ago. I was in Milwaukee teaching a class on Leviticus, and we were talking about the korbanot, the sacrifices, the offering to God, and how it had to be absolutely perfect. If you brought a bull or a
wild, that's wild.
And so I'm trying to explain it the best way that I could, and looking for some good interpretations. And somebody in my class put his hand up and he said, "Rabbi, I don't think you quite understand what's going on here." I said, "Tell me." He said, the reason that you had to have an absolute perfect animal is quite understandable. He said, "I used to raise cattle. I had a cattle raising business in Iowa." And he said, "My best cows, my best bulls, I kept for breeding purposes. They were very valuable. I didn't send them to be slaughtered. I sent them, I wanted, that was my," so he says, think of the sacrifice of our ancestors who used their breeding cattle, the most valuable of their cattle, to offer to God. And I got,
Giving the best.
I've read that passage for years, and I've never seen that, never understood the great sacrifice it was. But you, because you were a cattle raiser, you saw something that a rabbi didn't because of your life experience. Kol hakavod, I would say. Oh, wow, good for you. And thank you. And sometimes that's why rabbis love having a class, because you look at a text, you have your life experiences, your temperament, and so you're going to read the same thing over and over again. You're going to get the same. Then comes somebody who may not know Hebrew as well as you do, but can see something that you don't.
From his life.
Yeah, and you go, wow, Yeah,
You
that's
know,
valid.
when I teach the children about Torah, I always tell them we read it over and over and over again because we find things in it that we didn't see before.
That we
Maybe
missed.
we didn't see them, or we learned from our experiences up to that point that we see them in a different way
Excellent.
now.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
and
Mom.
you know, that was Ben Bagbag in the Talmud said, turn it over and over for everything is
Mhm.
contained in it. And you know, you might look at a Torah passage when you're 20 years old. Hey,
Correct.
when you're 20 years old, you're a
That's
smart
right.
ass. Okay, you know everything, right?
Right,
Right.
right,
Mhm.
I got it all figured out, right?
right.
But you look at it 20 years later,
Wow.
divorce, you've had a few breakups, you've had a few bumps in the road, you've learned some stuff, and you go, I
Gee,
see.
sounds different now when I
It
read that
sounds different
passage.
now,
Question, Rabbi.
right?
Question.
And you get to be older, you're aging, or you know, or what are you going to say, Marilyn?
I have a question. The concept of cutting up animals and giving it to God, from what I'm listening or reading about the Bible, the other societies at that time were very primitive, right?
Yes.
They were worshiping idols.
Mhm.
They were doing all sorts of giving things to these idols and money, etc.
Praying to idols.
Right, right. Now, where in my mind does donating sacrifices apply to a tremendous spirit? That concept, Rabbi, is a little bit overwhelming for me, that why the primitive societies, they were all doing it, you know what I'm talking about, but to take on it for Judaism, not now, of course, but at that time, it was related perhaps to what they took from these other religions, but it was God who is the top God. Correct me again. He said, these
Yeah.
are all meaningless, all your gods. He can't do this. He can't do this. He tells them that, but I'm the one you have to know. So he's still taking that thing up and giving these animals as part of
You
our,
know, it's language. You remember we were just talking about language. The
Yeah.
sacrifices weren't God's language. They were a cultic language, a cultural language. And that's how we interpret it. Did God ever really want sacrifices?
that's what I'm
God
questioning.
wanted, the word korban for sacrifice in Hebrew means to draw close. God wanted us to draw close. We grew up, we were a young people in the Near East where everybody was sacrificing animals to their gods. Some people
Yeah.
were sacrificing their children to their
Children.
Right, exactly, Marlene, right. That's what
and
I've
so
heard.
you know
I
we
read.
drew the line at certain
Just did
things
animals.
You know-
certain things we would but you know, because later on God says, what do I need your sacrifices for? What were you going to say, Marlene?
When I teach about Abraham and
Yes,
his
yeah.
father being an idol maker and all of that, I
Good
usually
point.
use the analogy of a Barbie doll. And I say to them, hey, get me a car, you know, and they look at me, you know, I say, these things don't work. These things, you know, as
Yeah,
an
that's right.
idol, this is just a plastic doll when you think about it. And they
Yeah.
like look at me like, really, you know, people pray to
Yeah.
these things. And I go, yeah, thinking that their lives would change.
Yeah,
Life doesn't change until you change it yourself.
that's
They
right.
continued it, the Jews, and continued to donate these things because they thought it's going to get get the sins away that they had, atonement and et cetera,
Yes.
other purposes. But when did it stop, Rabbi?
Well, when
did
the
it stop?
temple was destroyed, you could see a gradual centralization
Change.
of the sacrifices. We started, we prescribed in great detail what sacrifices were allowed and which weren't. Fairly early on, we said, especially around the time of Solomon, we said, you can't make a sacrifice in a local temple. You got to come to Jerusalem. which made it more
okay.
difficult. It seems to have limited it. And then when the temple was destroyed in the year 70, we said, you know what? We don't need it anymore. I think it was gradually evolving away. So
Yeah, Calvin.
here's something. We're Saturday night, and we're getting ready for Passover. Saturday night's going to be the first Seder. Well, certainly the Haggadah can be translated in all, or not translated. It can be interpreted in different ways. The idea of Cherut, which is liberty, freedom, Geulah, redemption, of Dut, which is slavery. These things can be understood in all sorts of ways. If you're a feminist, I mean, if that's really, you know, you're a woman or who's just discovered the women's movement, you know, you could see it from that point of view. It makes a lot of sense. You know what I just discovered? And I listened to it last night. The Alabama Blind Boys. Ever hear that group?
No.
Group
Yeah.
of old black men do gospel.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you got to listen to it. They have one song called "One Safe Room." A lot of it's a cappella. It's a little bit gospel, but also R&B at the same time. Beautiful, bluesy. These old, and they talk about Jerusalem. They talk about being redeemed from Egypt, and you know that you can look at the Haggadah. They made the Passover story their own, from their own experience as African Americans in slavery and Jim Crow, and you can look, and it makes so much sense. Oftentimes during the American Revolution and following it, people who wrote about George Washington, he was called the Moses of America, leading the people away from, and guess who was Pharaoh? It was King George III. Somebody did a study of sermons written on the death, following the death of there was one study of the sermons that were written on around the death of Washington, and also about the death of Lincoln. Lincoln died during Passover in
Really?
April. It wasn't the first day of Passover. I don't know. It was April 5th. Yeah. And so the rabbis were the first to preach about, before it was a Friday. I think it was the Friday, intermediate Friday of Passover in 1865. So right away, you know who they were comparing? Who do you think they were comparing Lincoln to?
Moses.
Who do you think? And in the churches on Sunday, who do you think? Moses.
Right.
And of course, in the South, they looked at Abraham Lincoln as Pharaoh. But be that as it may, you can look at it so many different ways. I don't know if any of you watched my meditation today. I
did.
Did you? I talked about how you can be, kind of a slave to time. You can feel time pressing in on you. I did a little interpretation.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Marilyn, you should join us at 9:30.
Yeah, as I'm
Fabulous.
turning over. Okay.
It's fabulous.
I know.
Well, it's just
So
as
what-
relaxing as
You're an
sleeping.
early riser. I know.
What I talked about was how elastic time is, and how if you're a slave to time, and the Talmud says, he who presses time will be pressed by time. There is this phenomenon. There's this phenomenon of, as time goes on, as you get older, time seems to move more quickly.
Right.
It moves more quickly. the years seem to pass quicker. When you're a kid, time seems to pass more slowly. And one explanation of that is, well, hey, if I'm a semester in school when I'm 12 years old, that 3-month period is quite a large percentage of my life up to my lifespan up to then. So it seems like it's so long. 3 months. Oh my God. Remember when you were waiting for summer to happen when you were 12 years old and it was March and you had to get to June? It just seemed like forever. Now, boom, between March and June, it goes. Some people say because it's a smaller percentage of your life in comparison, so it seems to go faster. But there's another phenomenon at work. It's routine. It's monotony.
Yes.
Monotonous.
Monotonous, but I want to make the noun of it. Monotony.
Monotony.
Monotony, the monotony of our lives. When you get to be an adult, you get your routines. And nothing seems that new to you anymore.
I
Right?
think it's because we get set in our ways.
You get set in your ways and you kind of go, "I've seen it all. I've done it all." Or
Not necessary.
maybe I didn't get to the Antarctica, but I've traveled. I know what travel is like. I don't get all excited about getting on a plane anymore. I don't. Where a child,
Computer, but you see Antarctica.
especially a young child, is experiencing everything for the first time.
First time, excitement.
I mean, I have a grandson who's a year old. My daughter-in-law and son sent pictures of him tasting, Heinz baby pears or something for the first time. He goes,
I saw bubbles for the first time. It was like, oh, wonderful.
Isn't that wonderful?
It is wonderful.
David Eagleman, who's a very interesting neuroscientist at Stanford, did an experiment. I talked about it today, in which he flashed images on a screen, and he asked people how long these images were held for. So in one experiment, he had a brown shoe on the image. Brown shoe. Brown shoe. Brown shoe. And then every so often he would throw in flour. Then he'd go back to brown shoe. And at different intervals, flour. So then he asked the people, how long did I hold that image on the screen of a brown shoe? Oh, it went very quickly. What about the yellow flour? Oh, that was 3 or 4 seconds longer. When it was exactly the same amount of time.
But you pay more attention to the flowers.
You pay more.
Brighter.
It wasn't just the color. He decided that it was probably the novelty of it, something new. When you engage in something new, time stretches.
True.
Pay more attention, and you have more time. So you want to add, time, at least the experience of time is kind of elastic. And you can't add more years to your life, but you can feel those moments just stretching out. You can slow when you do something new, when you introduce something new in your life, your experience of time is much longer. And I think that's what we want to do as we get older. we want to slow things down a little bit because we want to, you savor them. Even we want to savor things a little more. And so good advice when you get older is get out of your routine. Take a different way home.
Oh, the day will be longer then for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Go, you know,
Doing
you
the same
usually,
thing
Finding
as-
new things, finding new experiences,
Not
doing new
doing the
things.
same thing every single day,
Yeah.
changing, your days get longer in a way.
you know, I did Shai's mother's funeral the other day. When she was 60 years old, she went skydiving.
Yes, I was
Oh, my-
shocked when you said that.
Wow. It was
I was
online,
shocked.
Marlene? It was online, the funeral?
No, I went there actually.
Yeah.
Oh, what was it, graveside?
Yeah, it was
Yes.
great. So, you know, just think about that. Now that is, that's remarkable.
Yeah, that
And
is.
it can be a small thing, you know, you don't have to go skydiving.
I'm
But
not
if you
going
always
to
go to
go.
Publix, if you always go to Publix,
Try Winn-Dixie.
I wouldn't be Dixie, you just go,
Try a new
I
one.
don't know where everything is in Winn-Dixie. Good,
That's
you'll have to look for it.
It'll take
That's
you
the
go to-
deal.
Maybe you'll go to
It's
the
longer.
you go to the president, you know, that supermarket where all the Spanish people
Yeah.
go. President,
It's a new
try that,
experience.
shop there
It's a new
once, just,
experience.
It's a new experience.
Changes your life.
yeah,
Make it more
if
interesting.
you're, I try and take different routes to the synagogue. Now that I'm driving to the synagogue, I take all sorts of different routes. It's just, you like a certain kind of music. I'm kind of stuck in the 60s. I'm a Rolling Stones.
I'm stuck in the
Bob Dylan.
50s.
Okay. So listen to some alternative rock. It's good music.
I put on the
Um,
70s then.
Yeah, I'm catching up to the 90s where my kids grew up. You know, I discovered the Goo Goo Dolls. They're really a good band. That's good. I thought,
Don't know one from
I
the
never even
other.
heard of them.
No.
And,
clue.
and last night I listened to Alabama Blind Boys.
Oh, that helps me a lot, right,
And,
Molly? From
and
another
it
world.
was just, and there was one song that almost brought me to tears. It was called One Safe Place. Oh, and the
Good.
harmonies. I went, I don't listen to gospel. I don't listen to that. But it was
Gospel is
it
interesting.
touched me so deeply. You know, introduce something new. And what does it say in the morning prayer? Mechadesh b'chol yom ma'aseh v'reshit. God renews creation.
Every day,
Every day.
beginning a
It's
new day.
It's
That's
you
what I
never
wrote
live.
to you on meditation today. Each day is a new beginning.
That's right. You never lived today. Today is a new day. And now,
And forget about
and
tomorrow.
so I might talk to I might do this on Friday if you don't mind. You might get, maybe you'll see something new and maybe I'll come up with a new twist to it. But that is a different way of looking at Passover. Are you a slave to one? And remember, Egypt means narrow place. That's literally what it means. You know the word surus in Yiddish,
Yeah.
surus, meaning trouble. It comes from the Hebrew word tsar, which means narrow. Mitzrayim, it means a narrow place. And so we can get into a very narrow place in our concept of time. And so it's just another way of looking at.
And this
what is slavery.
pandemic has created that channel of time for us. I really feel that this year has been an awareness. It was time to open up and see your own life and how it spans out and your accomplishments. It gave us a lot of time to see within ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that was great exploration of oneself person and what our accomplishments have been. And now that I'm turning 75 this year,
Not
it's
you.
like, oh,
You know, as they would say, in Scotland, you're a wee lass.
I'm turning 75 also in 20.
Yeah, another wee lass.
I
See
can't,
that?
And then
I got the chills just to say that number.
Oh, no, I think it's great. I think it is just, I mean, I'm not
I
gonna be
can't
75
believe, I
until
can't believe,
September.
I'm October 10th.
3/4 of a life, 3/4 of a lifetime we've lived. We've,
I'm
you know,
smelting
Three-quarters of a century.
wonderful.
We're on the
Right.
same page.
You know who Satchel Paige was?
Eddie's the best.
Yes, I
He
know
was
who
the
Satchel
great.
Paige
He
was.
was a great baseball player
Football player.
who came into the major leagues when it was
Just
finally got open.
recently
I
passed.
don't know when he passed away. I think quite a few years ago,
What's his
actually.
name?
Somebody just
Who?
recently.
Satchel
Satchel
Paige.
Page.
He played in the
I had
Negro.
2 sons.
He
That's how
he
you know. I
played in the
totally
Negro
haven't.
leagues, but
Right.
just a few years after Jackie Robinson got on to
Mhm.
the Dodgers, they brought up Satchel Paige, a black man who was born in the Mississippi Delta, where they didn't record they didn't do birth
Births.
certificates often for African American children. So somebody started counting up the number of years that he'd played. And, gee, you played so many years in the Negro leagues, and then you've been playing in the major leagues now. Oh my gosh! And they figured he had to be in his late 40s or early 50s, which by baseball standards it makes you ancient.
Old.
You know.
Old.
And there was one reporter who said, Satchel, how old are you? And he said, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? Think about that.
Oh, I've thought about that.
Isn't that great? If you did not know, honestly did not know that you were 75, you're going to be 75. Marlene, how old would you be?
I would be 42, 44.
Who knows? Who knows? What if it's, but I think that is so wise. How old would you be if you didn't know how old you was?
Really? If you didn't really look, do we really believe that Moses was so old when he died? I mean, how was he counting? 20 each year? I mean,
Different
really now?
concept of time. That's my opinion. Again,
What'd you
Different time.
different
Yeah.
time zones.
Yeah.
different-
Again, that is a narrowness. If we're talking about freedom, that is a narrowness in our thinking about time, which again, you could do the Haggadah, just looking about the slavery of time. The watch can be a heart attack machine. The watch can shorten your life. You strap the heart attack machine on you and you go, oh, running here, running there, running here.
Running here, running there. Mm-hmm.
So, we didn't get to the Talmud today, but I think this is it's a fun discussion.
I'm sure there's some connection to the Talmud and something.
There always is.
Right?
Well, I did give you
There has to be something. I'm sure.
he who presses time will be pressed by time.
What time?
Which means if you go by your life too much with the time, it's not good for you. Is that what that means?
That's right. It is
I
like
don't have a problem then.
Stressful. It becomes stressful.
It becomes stressful. If
You're always worried
time-
about making an
Yeah.
appointment and everything, right?
no, I don't think any of us would think that sloth or being lazy is a good thing. No, I think we should, but we get so extreme. We begin to put a value on time, like as if it were
Money.
like money. Time is money. Time is
money.
money.
Exactly.
And we waste time. You waste time. You spend time. It's like it's money. And when it's something else, you can be a slave to the material value of time. You can be a very productive person if you feel like time is stretching out a little bit, and you feel and you give your full attention to what you're doing. First of all, it's a more of a mindful experience, but you find out you have more time than you thought you did.
I find when I'm busy, there's more time in the day to complete things. I don't understand how that works.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
Because when you sit
exactly.
around and do nothing, you get nothing accomplished, and it's the same amount of time.
Yeah, you get into the zone. You know, you get into the. I like, it's almost a meditative thing. Sometimes I get oppressed by time, and sometimes I'm just writing time. I'm surfing on it, and I'm getting stuff done. And but I'm sort of not conscious of it. I'm just in the zone.
Happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
You're accomplishing. Yeah, it's accomplishing.
Okay, I'm not going to be here next week. The week after, I'll get the word out to you. The week after, I might not be here either. I'm going up to North Carolina.
Oh, great.
On Monday, I'm going to be driving with my box of matzah. And I'm probably staying until, so next week it's Passover, so I'm not going to be teaching because I am going to be on vacation. I'm not sure when I'm coming back. I'll be honest with you. I'll get the word out and we'll say.
I think he has to ask his wife.
Huh?
I said, I think he has to ask his wife
Yes,
when you're returning.
yes. I ask her everything. We go.
And this Sunday is a community Seder. You'll be here. Or you
on
won't be
Sunday.
here?
I'll be here. I'll be
Sunday.
here for that. Yeah, I asked Marilyn when we were going to an event, or at an event, I go, am I having a good time yet? She said, yes, you're having a good time. Oh, good.
My sons have learned that their wife's in charge.
There you go.
I laugh
Okay.
about it.
Chag Sameach, everybody.
Season Pesach, Rabbi.
Stay well, stay safe. Happy
All
Passover.
of you, Marilyn,
Okay.
Betty, stay well.
Wonderful seeing you as usual.
Stay
Okay.
safe.
well. Stay
Okay,
safe.
bye-bye.